A precision router table system from Kreg combined with 1400 watt AMB spindle with the best bits on the market from Fraser. This is what all today's video is about, so stay tuned until the end of the video. Welcome again in the channel. Here is Barada Guitars, and today we are reviewing the Kreg router system combined with a lot of high-end stuff that could move your woodworking shop to the next level. Today feels like Christmas and we have a lot of things to see and try, so let's start today's video with the multi-purpose shop stand. This shop stand could be used for multiple purposes as its name shows, but in this case we will just use it for the router table system from Kreg. Everything here is heavy gauge, we are not talking about something flimsy, and I will start the assembly with organizing the screws and the washers in two drawers, and I will start with the two legs and two side rails. After making sure that our alignment is correct, we can start inserting the bolts and tightening down the nuts and making sure that everything is square. Squareness here is a very important thing to take in consider, otherwise you will end up disassembling and repeating from the beginning. Now on the boards that we have already installed with two legs and two side rails, we can install four end rails, which they are two on each side, making sure that everything is square again, and start tightening down all the nuts. After doing that, we can move this part to the side and start repeating the exact same thing that we did with two legs and two rails, and then we can insert the first part inside the second one and then make sure that everything is square again and inserting the bolts and the nuts. And we've done almost 70% of the installation. Here we have four heavy duty feet that are also height adjustable, and those four levelers that came also with the same set, but I'm not gonna use them in this case. I will use this caster roller set that have a double locking mechanism, so when you lock them they will stay in their places, they will not be turned around left or right, and they will not move back or forwards. So that's great for stability and adjustability. For attaching those feet to the legs, we need 4 bolts and 4 nuts, and you can of course adjust the height as I mentioned before, which will also be very useful in different positions and different uses depending on what you are planning to use on the table. And with installing the casters, we are done with the installation of this rigid table. It looks not so strong, but in the reality it's very stable, very strong and well designed. Moving to the next package, which will be unboxing the router tabletop. This tabletop is a very rigid and comes with everything you need and a base plate for your router in case if you are not planning to buy the router lift system that we will see later on in the video. So let's start installing the table. Here you can see very nice and clean design with 27mm thick MDF. We will start the installation with inserting 3 screws to hold the meter gauge in its place. We will flip the table to the other side and we will install those 2 reinforcement steel rails on the downside, and they will add stability to the tabletop. After that we can install the plate insert levelers. They work great for having a very flat top, so the router blade or the router lift system will be flush to the surface of the table. After that we should insert those screws in the outside holes of those corners, and those they will be the levelers of the router plate. And by doing that we can move on to install and assemble the Kreg precision router table fans. And I don't know about you guys, but for me this feels so awesome to see all these products come together, having matched products that comes to the final one. Since I was a child I always loved to do that. Here we have all the parts of the installations, and again the assembly instructions and a lot of accessories that we should install step by step. We will start the installation of these fans with inserting 10 screws to hold down on the downside of the table the clamp block of this system. Now we can turn the table to the other side to insert the hand of the clamping block, and after that we should put the fence itself over those holes and put the spacers over the holes, align them and just hand insert them, and after that we can tighten the bolts. And on the other side we have those two insert screws to make sure that your fence always 90 degrees to the table, and we have this base handle that will hold the fence from the other side and make sure that it's always tight and square and not moving anywhere. After doing that, we can install the fence faces using flathead bolts, insert them through each hole, and then we can secure these faces through the back by using washers and some knobs. Now for the measuring tape, it has a self-adhesive bag. We can insert it starting from the center, going back to the side and cutting the rest of it. Last but not least is the micro adjuster, inserting this in the aluminum extrusion using the T-nut and tighten this down, and we can attach the tabletop to the table base or the table stand. Attaching the tabletop using some wood screws from the downside of the table, and now we have it in place. And finally we have the Kreg lift system. This system will help you a lot with moving your work to the next level. This will ensure that you are doing precise work repeatedly without having any issue, and very safe. This will help you a lot with changing bits and make the life much easier. With using just a blade, you have to remove the router every time, but with this it's really on another level. It doesn't matter which router or which spindle you mount on it, 20mm thick rods with 9mm blade will ensure that this will be no problem at all for this lift system. Plus 20 kind of router can be mounted on this blade, and if you don't have the correct holes, you can get an adapter. In my case, I got 43mm adapter, which will mount the AMB 1400 watt that you will see later on in the video. Everything is straightforward, just removing the two screws from the sub base of the blade, just align the holes and then install the screws again, tighten them, and then we can move on to our spindle. Now when it comes to spindles, my go-to choice always is AMB. SMB is a German company that makes really high-end and high-quality spindles for a CNC or even to use it as a router. Here you can see the name of the person who controlled my spindle the last time before it leaves the factory. A lot of features to talk about, but one of them is the ability to change the cable. Here you can see my AMB grinder, which will allows me to change the cable whenever it gets damaged or for other reasons. For controlling the RPM speed of the spindle, here we have from 1 to 6, and to see the speed that we are working with, we can see it on the spindle itself from 1 5000 to 6 25,000 RPM. Here we have an ER16 collet, and we are combining this with the Precision RegOFX collets, which they are unlike the standard collets that has so less tolerance than the standard ones. So here I'm losing the screws a little bit to give me a little bit of space, and then I can turn it to the sub base, put it on the table and insert the spindle inside the adapter. I can tighten the screw of the adapter and then we can attach it to the table. The 4 levelers corner that we have already installed underneath the table will ensure that your lift system is flat to the surface, so you don't have any sharp corners that will stop you from routering while doing that on the surface. So you can see me, I'm flattening this as much as I can so I don't feel any sharp corners at all. Even this magnetic reduce plate has 3 screws to ensure that it's flat to the surface of your lift system. We can install those 3 screws after removing the magnetic reduce plate and make sure that they are flat to the surface, and then we can adjust them. We have also 8 screws to insert this lift system in your DIY router table. Now mounting the lift system in its place using 4 screws and we are done. I will use this Hoto Pro measuring laser to measure the 90 degree of the fan or if it needs any adjustment. This laser made originally to measure distance up to 50 meters between 2 points. Now we reach to the point where we can install some accessories like this bit guard. We can insert it inside the T-nuts using the aluminum extrusions on the fans, and we can hold it in its place with tightening down the screws. Another optional thing that we gonna install was the Kreg router table stub. Those table stubs are very rigid, made of very thick aluminum. They are really overkill for my work, but I need them and they are very useful. After I follow the instruction, I can insert it inside the top of the aluminum extrusion and the T-nut, and then I can hold its place. You can remove it up and down depending if you are using it or not. Here we have a measuring scale that allows us to position it wherever we want depending on the diameter of the bits that we are using. And we have 2 of these Screwflex feather boards that we will use to push our piece that we are working with to the fans from the top or from the side. Here we have expandable plugs that will hold this feather in its place, and we can also stack those 2 over each other to allow for routering a thicker piece of wood. Here we have a very good solution, better than a T-nut, which allows us to remove it from the middle, unlike the T-nut that you have to slide it to the end of your T-nut to be able to remove it from your table. Here we have the Kreg hand crank that will help us to lower and higher our router. I found that I use this the most, and whenever I want to go a little bit faster, I can use my drill using an Allen key with the same diameter, which will help me to save sometimes, but whenever it comes to accuracy, I always use the hand crank. Now I can't wait to use this system, so let's give it a try and try to router and make some dust. After installing 6mm bit, I'm using a 10mm reducing magnetic blade. We can finish up with installing the dust board. Before start routering, make sure to protect your eyes and your ears. Obviously you can see here that I'm using a freehand routering style, but you can use the further boards to keep your hands and your finger far away from your router bit and to stay safer, especially if you don't have any experience before with using a router table. Unlimited option to use these feather boards to keep your hands safe. You can even stack them over each other with using the screws that came with this set, and you can router a thicker piece of wood. To stop on a certain point, you can use the stop blocks, which are very useful in some cases. A bit guard is also something useful, but we cannot use it all the time. In some operation we have to remove it, and I'm not using it in this video, just for video purposes. And I wish in this video that I can give you the feeling how smooth it is to change your bit, to having the chunk and the collets right in front of you, and change this from the top of the table instead of the bottom. Here I'm changing the collet to try another router bit, just cheap router bits I'm using until now, and you can see that the AMB spindle has no problem at all with that. Here you can see me going the full depth of the channel using the stop block, and here is the result. Now let's move to serious part. We have the Fraser bits. Fraser bits is a company that I have always used their bits in making guitar belts on this channel. They have precision high-end quality bits that last much longer than normal bits that you get to see on the market. Now this is the set that I recommend you to get as a beginner. This has almost everything you want. It has a round over chamfering and a 14-degree dovetail bit, and it has also trimmer that for me is a must use with making some templates, making shapes that I want safely, and it has this V bit that has 30-degree, and last but not least this flat and mill bit. Now let's remove this to the side and move on to another bits that I got also from Fraser that I will be using and testing in this video. And we will start this test with this upcut spiral bit with 10mm diameter and 45mm cutter length. by inserting two rods that came with this fence behind the left side of the face on the fence. We can tighten this down and align the left side of the face with our router bed. Here we have a pale moon ebony fretboard, and I will try to joint it to get it flat, and then we can have a flat side to work with. You can go back to the video and compare it side to side before and after, just for comparison to see how clean the result is. We have also spiller brush trim bed, but will not be trying in this video, but you will see me using in other guitar builds. Here we have 6 and 8 mm, and they are for me a must use beds. Here we have a V bed that I used also in the Telecaster build. You can go back and check the video. But here we gonna make another test using this pattern flute flush bed, and you can see here how clean is it. I will router this bass neck using a template that I have that I got from Guitar Bow templates. Here I'm installing the bed, putting my reduce blade and start routering. Now if you noticed, I left extra wood here when I cut the row shape on the bandsaw, just to show you what this machine and router bed is capable of. Now you can still get this nice and clean work with a hand router bed, but with table router it's much easier. And this is another trim bed, but it has its bearing on the top instead of the bottom. Here we have the must-have bed for me, which is the Tornado power bed. It has 35 mm diameter cutter, and it has those knives that you can change instead of changing the whole bed every time. They are very sharp, and you have different coating for different uses. Here we have a round over bed. And here we have a 6 mm spiral upcut bed with amazing cutting on it. I made a closer look for you guys just to check how cool this cutting on this bed is. So let's give it a try and do a channel, and we will go a little bit rough with it with 4.5 mm of depth. And by the way, talking about depth, always follow the instruction of the factory for the beds that you are using. For some beds this could be too much and you should do it on 2 steps. Here we can see the channel, and we will do a quick round over using the freezer bed again, and we can see here a nice round over. And until this point you reach the end of this video, thank you all for watching, and please check the description box down below for all the links of all the products that I use in this video, and get 10% off of freezer beds by using the discount code. Please follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, hit the subscribe button if you like to, and I will see you the next time, and until then, peace.